Hello and welcome to this week's Power Hour, from our desk to yours. The Power Hour is brought to you by Dare to Scale, and you have joined me, Varsha, and the co-creator of Dare to Scale, Evan.
And me. Hi, good morning.
Good
Great to have you with
morning.
us.
Yes. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are joining us from. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for that continuous engagement that you bring through to us through our email conversations on your mentor at daretoscale.com. We welcome you to this time's Power Hour, where the conversation is going to be focused on first looking at your strategic playing field and then picking up that one topic, going in depth in it, because I'm going to go through what's coming over the next few weeks as we keep delving deeper into your business's strategic playing field. So to start with, what is the strategic playing field? I'm going to read out a couple of passages that we have written in one of the toolkits that we use within Dare to Scale. So your strategic playing field, or sandbox, as you may know it, it takes elements of your strategy and views them in the context of your business model. For you to be able to improve and tweak your business model, you will need to clearly articulate each of these belts in your strategy. The key areas that are addressed over here and over the next few weeks are, to begin with, why? Why do you do what you do? What is the core purpose of your business's existence? And then comes the who. Who encompasses your team, your customer base, your suppliers, everybody who is a stakeholder within your company. And then comes the what. What is it that you sell through your company? I will go through this a little bit in depth as I introduce the entire conversation pieces over the next few weeks. And then comes the where. Now, this is something that is usually neglected in that overall strategic playing field. So we're going to talk about that in the coming weeks. And then, of course, how do you get your product or your service across? How is it packaged? How do you actually sell it? How do you get it across to the who in your business? So these are the different elements which then further lead to articulating your value-driven and measurable brand promise. So the end game really is to identify this so clearly that you eventually get to identifying your company's brand promise. Your one phrase strategy as well in it, keywords that you own in your industry, and so on and so forth.
Totally. And picking up from that, so picture a little stream which forms the source of a mighty river, or in our case, we talk about pine cones to redwood. So just picture that pine cone. So it holds within it, a powerful redwood tree which lasts for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So too your sandbox, which holds the blueprint to your sustainable business. So getting the foundations right will help you survive. Not only survive, but thrive. And that's the point of all of this. So to execute your strategy, you'll first need to find and clearly articulate, like what I said, your why, the who, what, where, and how variables, and get those into your business model and tweak everything.
Totally. And remember, as I said earlier, we're going to be going through an in-depth conversation on the why, the business's core purpose. So for some of you, it may come across as a little too philosophical a discussion. Bear with us, because as we continue through the conversation, there's a proper framework that we'll be going through that will help ease that conversation. So there's a method to this seeming madness. So continue with us till the end, and you will see how to make this enormous conversation and fairly easy one or easier one as you sit down with your team and work them through finding your company's core purpose. So, as I said, next week we're going to be dealing with the who. This is
Or next
interesting.
time.
Next time, not next week. Yes, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, we're going to be dealing with the who in your business. And joining us next time is a subject matter expert. Her name is Surbi Deria, who has done a lot of work on building your customers' buyers or your buyers' persona or your business's buyers' persona. So look forward to that, because that's going to be some brilliant nuggets that will come out of that conversation. And we cannot wait for Surbi to join us in 2 weeks' time. Continuing from that, of course, is the what and how do you sell your products? What is it that you really sell? And then where do you sell to, or how do you get that geographical area around? And there's going to be an in-depth toolkit or a little workbook or a framework that you will be walking away for each of these elements as we tackle them as we progress through the Power Hours. So once again, thank you for joining us at the Power Hour with Dare to Scale, from our desk to yours.
Absolutely. And if there's any comments, anything you want to share with us, obviously put it into the live chat, but also use your mentor at daretoscale.com and just let us know your thoughts. I want to just take a step back for a second. So you're saying the discussion about the why and the core purpose becomes a little philosophical. And I want to share a little bit about that, because it's an important distinction where, I mean, like I spend a lot of time in the corporate world. And in the corporate world, there's what they call in the NLP space, there's a motivation. There's either a towards or an away from. And in a lot of cases in the corporate world, it's very much away from. And most of us, we get into the workforce and reality strikes or bites, if you will. And we suddenly we're earning money, and suddenly we have all these expenses we never had before because mum and dad were looking after us. And there's a whole bunch of learning that sort of goes into that place. So suddenly there's rent, there's utilities, there's responsibilities, all that, and there's a lot of away from. So I don't want to end up short of cash, and I don't want a bunch of don't wants, right? Yeah. So you're moving away from things, and it very much is in that sort of Bill sort of space. Now, when you're talking about the why and your core purpose, that's actually a towards. And a lot of us struggle with that. So sort of to help, again, put that into a little bit of context, each of us do have a little bit of towards in us, it's fair to say. So let's peel that back away from the sort of the philosophical, the grand design of a why, and bring it back to something like, say, a tangible a car, right? I drive, for example, a Toyota. I want to maybe upgrade to, say, a Land Cruiser. So it's a step up from a Corolla to a Land Cruiser, and maybe my big dream might be the Mercedes-Benz, the G63, a giddy up V8 supercharged beast, and it's really that dream car. So in the material sort of context, it's a lot easier for us to imagine what that next step might look like and help us motivate ourselves towards it. And where you have that sort of aspirational goal, like the giddy up Mercedes-Benz, for example, you can go to a dealership. You can actually sit in the car. You can go for a test drive. You can really feel what it's all about. And because of that, it can get into your, well, you can attach emotion to it, if you will, and it then becomes like a SMART goal. So it's time bound, measurable, all the good stuff in a SMART goal, and you can really focus on that and put your efforts into it and achieve that goal. So it's kind of interesting when we're talking about the core purpose. It really is that higher level, and it's getting your thinking up there. And I think that might help with that distinction, hopefully.
Yes, and I want to now take it a couple of notches higher, if you will. So this is a great example of a towards, and I'm now taking the towards a little bit higher. So you aspire to get your dream car, for example, or your Harley Davidson, or whatever it is. And then what? Because that to me is not so much an instant gratification, but it is to me a material gratification. And then what? What after that? So let's take the Harley Davidson example. So why would you buy a Harley Davidson? Is it to buy that bike, or is it really to belong to a community? Is it really to then do what you want to with that bike, go off on those long drives, to feel that freedom, to feel that to feel part of that community? So it really is about a couple of steps higher than that. Why do you do what do you do? Because last night was interesting, because I was recording a podcast with awarepreneurs, and if you haven't actually looked up, do look up awarepreneurs, run by Paul Zillers, brilliant podcast series. And the entire conversation circled around what is the positive impact that you are bringing about to the community around you. So I'm taking the core purpose, the why conversation, or the towards conversation a few notches higher as we continue through. So keep that in mind as well. And Evan, I again thank you for talking about that difference between the towards and away from. In many cases, we want to get away from something, an experience or a feeling. So we work towards something to get away from somewhere, or in many cases, we're really headed towards something that's that dream, that aspiration. It doesn't remain about running away from something. It really is going for that bigger dream. Anyway, I digress.
It's like you're connecting with your outcome.
Yeah.
So it's not a pain, it's an outcome. And again, this is sort of in a way a little bit like sales language. It very much is the towards too.
Totally. Trasika says it's not a brand, it's a way of life with Harley Davidson. Totally true. Oh, I love it. It's a way of life. And in so many cases, there's certain things that you really resonate with and you bring into your sphere is because it's a way of life. So good one, Trasika. Thanks for that. So why do you do what you do? To put it very simply, when we look at the core purpose of your business, to put it really, really simply, I want to share why do we do what we do, both Evan and me. At the very, very simplest, just us personally kind of space, we do this because of the freedom and the flexibility it gives us to travel. Now, that might sound like a little bit of a cliche, doesn't it? Because everybody says, oh, I want to be able to travel. For us, it's not about travel for traveling's sake. For us, it really is about exploration. It's about exploring. So when we travel, we take a longish time off and we spend a good 3 to 4 weeks in a place, live like the locals, and really explore different cultures, different ways of life. And we continue to work from wherever we are. The point is, why do we do everything that we do is towards achieving that freedom and flexibility, which we have really been living for the past few years. So if we purely just look at that, why do we do what we do is so personally, it gives us that freedom, flexibility to travel. If we then look at the slightly wider or rather deeper core purpose is why do we do what we do? In both our companies is to transform in our own way to bring that positive impact to the people associated with the business and to bring about that transformation to our clients, whether it is in Platinum VA or Dare to Scale. It really is about bringing that transformation in their lives, in their individual businesses, making their life a little bit easier so they can then go ahead and achieve their dreams. So in our own way, we're playing that small part in helping or enabling somebody to go ahead and go for their dreams. So really breaking that down. Evan, over to you. You were saying.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's like you say frequently. It's it's living a life less ordinary.
Oh, yeah.
And but of course it's nice you say it. But it really is that the path less traveled in a way. So it's connecting with what gets you out of bed for your business and for yourself. Because when you're enjoying what you're doing, and again, this is a cliche passion, the word passion. When you're really enjoying what you're doing, it's not work. It's actually fun, and it just, there's so much more energy there. And again, the towards has much more energy than an away from. And
it does.
When you make that transition to connect with that towards, it makes a huge difference. I mean, I said, like, I was definitely in the corporate world before. Now, while I grew up in a business family, mum and dad were both business people. When we migrated, I ended up, finishing school, but for what it was, ended up in the workforce. So my thinking sort of became the away from and all that sort of stuff. But when I joined you in the businesses, it made all the difference. And it took me a while. It really did take me a while to reconnect with that forward-looking space. And every now and then I trip myself up and I look backwards, and, once I pick myself up, I look forwards again. And with your why being big and strong enough, or your dream being strong enough, it does carry you through those tough times.
Totally. And I want to pick up on what Rohit says. Rohit, thank you for joining us. Always wonderful to see your inputs over there. And I love where you're going with this, Rohit. And we will be addressing this a little bit further along as we progress through this entire toolkit build. Rohit says, do clients or prospects really care about your why, what, who, where, how? Is there a straight up answer to this? Maybe, maybe not. What can be done to actually engage those clients or prospects is what this point of this whole conversation is. So taking that why to then going through the core purpose of to see, why does your business exist? What is that transformation you're bringing about to your customers is where the clients or your prospects will begin to see, why do you exist? Why is it, what's in it for them? And when that is articulated clearly enough, which is in a lot of cases isn't clearly articulated, that is when you're really bringing in the clients, opening the door and inviting clients in rather than selling at them. And that is again the whole purpose of this conversation. Thank you for that point, Rohit. We will continue this conversation, and this will actually be a whole lot more clearer. And I think this will be addressed even deeper next time when we come in, when we begin building that buyer's persona. And why do we even build a buyer's persona? So are we talking to the right people?
Yeah.
So we will definitely address this. I'm actually going to make a note of this. Rohit, thank you again for that wonderful, wonderful thought. So
yeah, I'd like to add that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a common phrase, and I mean, there's a lot of philosophy behind it. People buy from people they like. I mean, if we sort of get a little bit technical in the SEO space, right, with your websites and all the stuff that you put out there and your content, it really is about showing how much you care. So the short of it is, people don't care how much you know until they can see how much you care, until they know how much you care. And so when you get that right, and this is articulated certainly in your why and your who, what, where, how, you're connecting with your customers. So I mean, I love Rohit's question. Why bother with it? Well, it gives you that strong foundation to connect with your customer. Look, your customer's after the outcome.
Yep.
And when they get the outcome, as long as they come to your website, they trust you enough, and to engage and that sort of thing. So once they can see that you're creditable, they'll spend the time with you and actually convert and work with you. So that's a good thing.
It is. And Rohit, please continue talking to us about that particular question that you have posted, because I really want to make as many notes as I can to address this, especially when we come back to it in the next
Excellent, yeah.
in the next Power Hour. So first of all, thank you everybody who has joined us today on today's Power Hour with data scale from our desk to yours. So Evan,
Completely.
shall we
And
go straight?
there's a comment just come in as well. So
Oh yeah, go on.
people buy why you do something, not what you do, and that'll actually come up a
Oh,
little bit.
nice.
That'll come up very shortly.
Yeah, it says LinkedIn user, so we don't really know who has said this. So, and Amanda says Surbi Dadia, so probably that is Surbi who's going to be joining us at the next Power Hour in 2 weeks' time. Amanda says, I believe customers really do care about your why. Like Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. And interesting, you should talk about Simon Sinek. Of course, he's actually, I'm going to put a pin on that and we'll talk about it in just a couple of minutes. Evan, shall we go through this little deeper discussion on the core purpose?
Yeah. Okay. So your core purpose, the foundation of everything you do. And there's a wonderful quote, and I just want to start with that, and then you can go with the second quote, or the second piece. This is from Friedrich Nietzsche. He who has a why can endure any how. I mean, there's lots of different ways of stating this, but if your dream is big enough, the facts don't count. So he who has a why can endure and survive any how. Very, very powerful.
It is, and I will come back to Simon Sinek, as Amanda has said. This is nothing that we talk about today, whether it is business or life in general. None of this is a brand new conversation. I think it is. If you really explore the pages of history, you will see that we basically cycle through different phases. And when Simon Sinek's TED Talk came through, it was fairly groundbreaking for that time, because somewhere we had forgotten that element in a business sense, as to really exploring the why do you do what you do. So it's great that Simon Sinek put it back on the table as a point of discussion, and of course since then this has become a hot topic. And yet remains slightly out of reach. But if we really go back, most businesses were started for a why. Why are we doing this? If we go really literally 150 years ago, it is to bring about a revolution of some sort, because when somebody did something new, it changed the way people led their lives. It changed the way, as a world, we progressed. So again, none of this is a brand new conversation. It really is continuing to peel those onion layers. So somewhere I think we'll be hard pressed to find somebody who hasn't watched that TED Talk. But if you haven't, we will post a link to that. So of course go do watch it, because it in today's times it's one of the greatest TED Talks ever. And yet it doesn't have to be such a heavy, in-depth philosophical conversation. So yeah.
And look, what I really love about the articulation that Simon actually put out there was, actually take a step back. Do you notice how it is a towards statement and not an away from statement?
Yeah.
Because he was very clear about the sort of the circles, if you will, and there's the what, the how, and the why. And a lot of like tech companies, for example, they talk about the what, the features, and no, not features. I suppose it is features, right? And then you get out to the why, where it's like, well, these are the value adds to you, which is a very different sort of discussion. But it very much is a towards kind of statement, and he's helped sort of elevate that thinking back up to that sort of bigger picture. And I really love that.
It is. And I can see another brilliant quote posted by Rohit, and I'm going to read it out for the benefit of people who are joining us on other platforms like on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live. So Rohit says, a man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears towards a human being who affectionately waits for him or to an unfinished work will never be able to throw away his life. He knows the why for his existence and will be able to bear almost any how. The quote is by Viktor Frankl. Man's search for meaning. Brilliant, brilliant quote, Rohit. Thank you. Really, thank you for sharing that, because this is, it really goes to prove that none of these conversations are brand new conversations. This has been said over and over again in so many different ways, and importantly, in different contexts. So we will bring this conversation to the core purpose of your business. So I think we've talked a lot about the why from a personal perspective. So let's see, what does it mean and how do you go about now sort of peeling those layers even further to your business. So let's first see, what is it? And I'm going to read through some of our toolkit notes. So what is it? When we say the core purpose, what is it? A core purpose is usually higher and goes way beyond profit. Why do you run a business? Of course, to make a profit. Whether it is a not-for-profit organization, whether it is a social entrepreneurship, whatever it is, the fact is you've got to make money to sustain yourself. So that is a given. But what is the core purpose? It usually is something that extends beyond profit. It's the core purpose usually, as you grow your company, as you go through the different stages of scaling up, it evolves. It doesn't directly change, but it evolves. It continues to evolve, and it inspires adaptation or redefinition or redefining the course of your business. A core purpose works around obstacles, and I know how I've written this, and the way I visualized it usually is, if you look at a mountain range, for example, you have mountains of different heights, different challenging scalable surfaces or faces, and yet when you look at the core purpose, it's way higher than the highest mountain. So when you know how strong your core purpose is, when you look down, all those mountains really look like little obstacles, because the core purpose is so high that however high a mountain, it really is a little bump on the road, because you know where you're headed overall. Does this make sense? If it doesn't, I think it will at some point. The core purpose inspires and brings together teams as a community. Always remember, your core purpose, it is something that includes people around you, whether it is your team, whether it's your customers, and something that I usually talk about, which most people or most businesses don't consider as part of their community, are your company's suppliers, people who feed into you, people who sell to you, your service providers. They're very much part of your company. So it inspires and brings together teams as a community. A core purpose, and this is the kicker again, we circle back to the us, is it is the difference you're making in the world. It is the positive impact that you're making to people around you, whether it is people, it's a community, it's a city, it's a country, it's a planet overall, whatever it is that you're doing. It is the positive impact that you're making.
Totally love it.
It's
not about you per se. You have your own core purpose, I guess. But when we're talking in the business context, it's about that business, the difference the business is going to make, and it's not about you; it's about the business and the interaction between you and the, as you say, all of the people around you, customers, team, suppliers, everybody.
Evan, before you continue, I'm going to read out another LinkedIn user. It's so strange, and the platform that we use to go live doesn't necessarily always give everybody's name. So please forgive me when I say LinkedIn user, because I can't see your name. And the person says, our lives have increasingly become busy and it's hard not to be distracted. Knowing your why helps you start in the right direction and sustain that focus. Very nice. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Evan, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that simplified strategic plan that you work with the mentees.
Yeah.
Especially if you can get everything onto one page, and you plaster that around the office. It's that reminder. So, I mean, sometimes they talk about goals and putting them reminders and images on your mirror in your bathroom, right? It's kind of like that. When you see it, it just reminds you and it keeps you on track. Absolutely. So it's very easy to sort of articulate once you've got it. It's never 100% right, but close to right. So bang, you've got it, and you're on your way. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, well, so there's a lot of like, what is it? And a lot of this is very sort of conceptual, high level, sort of philosophical. That's why we said, look, please stick with us. It's about finding something that's towards kind of a goal or a purpose, and it's about finding something that's high enough that it'll actually see you over the mountains. So where there's an obstacle, I mean, you can go around, under, over, all that sort of thing. But when it's big enough, the path forward is a little bit easier to see, and it helps you with what to say yes to. So it's all definitely in that towards kind of space. So if you're wondering sort of what type of purpose, sorry, let me ask a different question. Are there any different types of purposes? I think there are. You can have excellence, right? So if it's your service to others, your community, your cities, and like you said, also the world at large, is it excellence in what you're doing at such a high level that it really is something that you're aiming for? Is there maybe purity of purpose, if you will? There's like a quest for truth or knowledge, solutions, a new way of doing things. So heavily in research, for example. So to be the best at, I mean, I'd like to think Google does the quest for truth, like supplying all the answers in one place, but it's kind of like that. It's a little philosophical, but that's what drives them. What about elegance, right? You definitely wanted to change the world, and it's definitely about pursuit of excellence, but as harmony and perfection, as that kind of thing. Is it super elegant in what you're doing? And the last one is bold, making that huge impact on the world, right? It's you do what you do, and you're absolutely going to change lives. There's no question about that. Or preserving lives. I mean, whether it's a charity, for example, something like that, and basically saving the planet. There's an ecological drive and awareness of, I don't know, plastic pollution, that sort of thing. There's a boldness of purpose that also can be elegant. So it's what you do that absolutely makes that difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very nice. Very nice. It really, and even though we're build this toolkit, every time I hear those 4 very strong different sort of categories, it really does make me think there are so many brilliant examples in the world where we can look at why some companies do what they do, and you can clearly see where that bigger direction or the higher purpose is for them. So yeah, thanks for that reminder. And how do you go about now the discovery? When you sit down with your team, for example, to have this conversation, where do you start? There are 4 broad areas. Is the founder's original transformation vision? Why did the founder of the company even start the business? So whether it's your company is about 10 years old or 12 years old or 15 or 20 years old, eventually, why did this particular come into existence? Was there a need in the market? Was there something that the founder personally wanted to do? Was there I don't know, bringing communities together or people together. So what is that original transformation vision? Maybe there was a brilliant product that just had to come out into the market. There was a lot of R&D innovation that went into bringing an excellent product into that customer's hands. So to begin with, it's a founder's original transformation vision. And then it continues to, why does a company still exist? I'm going to put a pin on that and come back to this. What would happen if it went away? So what will people miss? So why does the company still exist? What still makes it tick? And what would happen if it went away? And the reason I'm pausing for this and repeating this is very rarely do teams or founders sit with people around them and in a strategic thinking session actually ask themselves this question. Because we generally take things for granted. The company is there. Of course it's there. Why would it not be there? It's not about why would it not be there, but it really is about knowing, what if it wasn't there today? How many lives would you be impacting? And what will the customers or your stakeholders miss? And why do I devote my creative energies over here? And now that I can be you, the founder, or you, the person who works with the company, or it could be you, the customer. Why does a customer come and buy from you? Or it could be you, the supplier to a particular company. Why do you supply to this company? And when you're going through this conversation with your teams, every time somebody says, well, why do I supply to this company? Because it pays great rates. Well, super. That's a great starting point. But there's a bigger reason. Just as people buy from people they like, people also sell to people they like. It's always a two-way conversation. So these are some of those questions that you ask, that you put on the table, put on 4 flip charts, 4 whiteboards, if you like, one question or one element per flip chart, and actually engage that entire team in that conversation to see what comes out. Because remember, when you engage your team in a conversation like this, you actually, what you're saying is, for a few minutes, you're putting aside you as a founder, you're very close to the business, and you're now putting aside that perspective and opening it up to the room to say, what do people look at from the outside in? Even though these are people you work with every single day, they have a different perspective. So where is that, what is that view that you're bringing into the conversation? It's just supremely valuable, and some brilliant things come out of it. And Evan, before I hand over to you, I'm going to read out a couple of notes that have come through. Joji said, a person who has found a purpose in life can overcome any obstacle in their path. Totally true. It's about that, like that mountain range example. And Genoma says, the purpose of business. Blue AI slogan is, your glee is our enterprise. Oh, I love that. Your glee is our enterprise. Objective is connecting customers and merchants by working together. Very nice. Yes. Very nice. Thank you for sharing your purpose of your business, Blue AI. I love it. Nice. Evan, over to you. Continuing in that little framework that we are building.
So let's just stop for a second, take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. This is all very philosophical. And I just want to remind everybody, we're here talking about your strategic playing field, your sandbox, which has a flow to it. And that flow is your why, your who, the what, where, and how. And it is that very sort of high level strategic aspect of your business model. And it gives, I guess, teeth to what you do and how you do it with your customer. To make that outcome worthwhile. Yeah. So it's being able to, connect at a very real level and make that difference that you're after. So now what we're talking about is, what is that difference? So what is that core purpose?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Every business has their current statement, and remember, it's evolving, right? It's never absolutely set in stone and put in the bottom of bottom drawer of your desk and never looked at again. It is actually a live sort of a statement. And where
It
DevScale
is.
is currently is we help masterful technicians step into their tribe of like-minded entrepreneurs and transform into masters of their business. So that's something that helps us get out of bed in the morning and do what we do, because it is making a difference. And it's helping entrepreneurs, particularly where they've come out of corporate, learn to run a business and really make that difference that they set out to make. So
Yeah.
we're enablers in that respect.
Totally. And I want to circle back to that sandbox conversation that we started right in the beginning is, and to your point, Evan, right now, is most business owners start a business because they're great at what they do. They have a great product, they have a great service, they're masters of their profession. Very few business owners start a business because they're great at running a business or they love running a business.
Yep.
And that is where elements like your strategic elements like the sandbox or even your entire strategic thinking sort of goes by the wayside. And we suddenly find ourselves firefighting a little bit. And the answers usually are in your strategy. And that's why we are talking about the sandbox. And of course, while this feels like a fairly abstract conversation, remember, this is something that I say so often. You probably heard it in our previous power hours, is from the abstract comes the tangible. So while this seems like an abstract conversation, it is this is where the keys to what is the tangible, what is the tactical, how do we take this abstract thinking and now turn it into a tangible product or a tangible business and a tangible business model will actually come through. And that's why we're starting this entire series of conversation, everything revolving around your sandbox or your strategic playing field starts with the why. So, hold on. Rohit says, when the business is not achieving its basic financial outcome, does that mean the why, who, what, where, how is flawed? In many ways, yes, Rohit. And I say this from experience firsthand and through all our mentoring conversations. And exactly as I said earlier, when you find yourself firefighting, that usually is firefighting is a very reactive stage. So something happens and then we do everything to put out the fire. Why is the fire starting in the first place? So if you're not achieving your basic financial outcomes, whether it is your financial outcomes, directly financial outcomes, or whether it is not finding enough customers, enough business, everything basically goes back to those elements. And why? Yes, why everything flows from the why. More often than not, it actually goes back to the who, to the what. What are you selling? How are you pricing your things? How are your products or services packaged? Are they packaged properly? Is it easy for people to buy from you? Are you even talking to the right customer? And how are you selling this? How are you getting the products or services out to the customer? So whether it is flawed or not, or maybe it just hasn't been very well articulated or documented, or if it is, it hasn't actually been used when you are now transforming that entire strategy into that tactical or that very tangible. How do you now get things done? So it is that link between you have a great strategic thinking session, and then how do you now turn that into an operational plan? How do you then do things that actually need to be done? So again, thank you for bringing that to the fore. And I am making notes of a lot of these comments that are coming through, because I'm going to address most of these as we continue over the next few weeks. Evan, over to you to start digging a little bit deeper into. And again, remember, this is a fairly simplified conversation piece. At no means are we saying this is the only way to do it or be all end all of it. But this is, if you will, what we're putting forward is a starting point. So, Evan, over to you.
Look, all we're talking about here is just a very simple technique. And look, again, in the strategic space, even in like an NLP kind of space, what you're wanting to get to is the sort of the core reason. So you start with a statement. So we help masterful technicians, like I said earlier, and how you then refine what it is that you're doing is you ask. It's 5 key questions, and they're a little bit repetitive, but you do it enough times and you actually get to the real reason. So the first one you ask is, why is it important to the client? And when you answer that, you then just ask, well, how does that matter? Answer that, and then again ask why it's important. So what you're doing is you're peeling away, and you're getting into the detail of it. Or if you're thinking sort of really big picture, you're actually chunking up, as they say, and you're getting up to that really high level reason why you're actually doing what you're doing. So why is it important? How does it matter? Why is it important? How does it matter? And then the last time, just ask, why is it important? And by the time you get to that, it really is the 3 whys. When you get to the bottom of that last why, when you're transparent and you've actually answered the question to the best of your ability, you will actually find that you're very, very close to what that core purpose is. So I mean, it's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful.
It really is. And when Evan read out our current core purpose statement, where are we reached, it's not so much go through the 5 questions and bam, you have the answer. This is something that evolves over time. This is something that evolves over time because you are evolving as a business, and B, you're actually getting that feedback directly from your customers or people involved over there. So this is something that remains an ongoing conversation. So that little framework that we talked about today it's very much that live document. And we say this a lot. Some of these foundational toolkits that we work on are those live documents that stay as a continuous conversation. So when Evan read out our own core purpose, where we're at, we're nowhere close to having even scratched the surface, because I don't believe we ever fully get to the one. Because when we get to that one, we're stopping that evolution process of evolution. So we're going to continue doing this little exercise internally, as we always do. And eventually I also know that it's going to settle somewhere as to what is that actual transformation that we're bringing about to the people we talk to on a day-to-day basis, on an every single day basis. So just to recap, what did we talk about today? And also, what is the purpose of the Power Hour? As I said last time, we were talking about a particularly touchy topic last time. So the purpose of the Power Hour is to bring about a space where we will bring up topics that it's an open forum, it's an open discussion, open mic, if you will. And it isn't about a clear definition or here's a tool, go work on it. This is more a starting conversations rather than a coaching session, if you will, because this is some of the questions that came through on the email to us to say, so what are we going to get out of this? Is there something that I can walk away with? Yes or no? You can totally walk away. You probably already are. Just as every time we open up the Power Hour room, we walk away with so many things because it's that constant onion layers peeling. So the purpose of the Power Hour is to bring some conversation topics to the table and continuing to peel those onion layers for us all. So what do we talk about today? We started the conversation about your sandbox or your strategic playing field. What is that? What are those parameters that you play within in your business? Starting with the why, then comes the who. Who are the people in your business? What is it that you are giving through the business, whether you're selling it? So what are you selling? whether it's a product or a service. How are you selling it? Where are you selling it? How easy is it for people to come and buy from you? Eventually leading to articulating your company's brand promise, your company's one phrase strategy, and some of the keywords in the industry that you own. So that is the long-term purpose of starting this series for Sandbox. Come join us. And today we focused on starting with your why. And the little framework that we discussed is to start with, what is a core purpose? How high is it? How high does it sit in your conversations? What are some of the broad categories that a core purpose would fall in? How do you go about that discovery conversation when you sit down with your team? And where do you start? You start with what does your current statement sound like? And then go on to those 5 hows and why conversations, or the questions. How does it matter? Why is this important? How does it matter? And keeping that conversation alive within your team. Evan, last thoughts as we continue to bring this conversation to a close for this time.
Look, everything we do in DataScale is quite interesting. It really is about strategy. Everything in your business. Okay, so there's a multitude of reasons why businesses can fail. And it normally comes down to strategy or cash. It's like Monopoly, right? Run out of cash, game over. But you're running out of cash because there's something wrong with the strategy, which bubbles down into your business model and the revenues and that sort of stuff. So there's everything's interlinked. It really is. But the key piece that we keep coming back to, it really is about the strategy and your sandbox, or your strategic playing field, is one of the critical things to get right. Like you were saying, Rasha, there's often a great product or a wonderful service that a professional can do, and that's why they start the business. And oftentimes when it's small, you can get away without having a decent strategy. The minute you start scaling and growing, then it becomes very apparent that there are cracks, and that all of those things start appearing. So when you take a step back, have your strategic thinking time, and work out how the pieces fit together, and really spend that time to do it, then you are, you're planning to succeed.
Totally. You bet you are. Do join us at the next Power Hour, where we have an in-depth conversation with Surbhi Deria on building your company's buyer's persona. That Power Hour is going to be on Wednesday, 25th at 11 a.m. Gulf Standard Time.
So remember, it's always the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday of every month, 11 o'clock local time. 11
o'clock local time. We are live on LinkedIn and live on YouTube as well. For those who used to join us on Facebook, and I say used to is for some reason Facebook has dropped off of this live streaming platform. We will do our best to get back over there. But in the meantime, do join us, do share, and do email us. I think we don't actually have to put that call out, because you guys have been amazing in keeping that conversation alive on email, which is yourmentor@daretoscale.com. Send us your thoughts, send us your comments, send us some of your observations that you would like us to include in this, or even send us some of the challenges that you face currently, and we will do our best to include that. There's a comment that has just come through. Hey, Jatin, thanks for joining. Jatin says, it's never the product service that fails as a business. It's often the strategy or the clarity of why that plays the major role. Brilliant. Yes. I'm going to make a note of that as we can come to the section on what is it that you sell, and then link it back to that overall strategy. Jatin, thank you for joining us, and says thanks for the session today. Well, the pleasure is ours, and the pleasure is ours mainly because you are the ones who join us and make the Power Hour a success every time we open these doors.
Completely.
Thank you again for joining us.
Be well, keep safe, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Remember, 25th, Wednesday 25th, with Surbhi Deria, where we discuss the buyer's persona. You have a brilliant rest of the day ahead.
Indeed. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Bye for now.